Virgo. Uh, they held back for a long time, longer than you probably realized while it was happening, longer than the surface of your interactions gave you any clear reason to calculate. They held back with the specific, sustained, effortful restraint of someone who had decided, for reasons that made complete sense within the logic of their own fear, that moving toward you was not something they could yet afford to do. Not because the desire was absent, not because the pull was not there, not because they looked at you and felt nothing, not because the current that exists between you was one directional and you were imagining the other side of it. The desire was present. The pull was real. The current ran in both directions. They simply held, gripped the reins of what they felt, and kept it at the distance that felt manageable, kept themselves at the distance that felt safe, watched you from that distance with the specific, attentive, cataloging quality of someone who is not indifferent, but who has constructed a barrier between their indifference and their action and is maintaining it through daily, deliberate, increasingly exhausting effort. The effort is ending. Something gave way. In the private, unwitnessed interior of this person's relationship with what they feel for you, something gave way. Not dramatically, not with the announcement that significant internal shifts sometimes imagine they require. Quietly, in the specific and irreversible way of something that has been held tightly for too long, finally releasing not from weakness, but from the accumulated wisdom of someone who has arrived through their own private reckoning at the understanding that what they have been holding back from was never actually a threat. The holding back was protecting them from vulnerability. From the specific exposure of moving towards someone openly without the safety net of ambiguity, without the comfortable deniability of a feeling that was never quite declared. And they chose it, the protection, the restraint, the maintained distance, because at some point it felt like the only available option that did not risk the full consequence of being completely, visibly, undeniably interested in you. Soft sigh. But here is what the restraint cost them that they did not fully calculate when they chose it. Every day of holding back was a day of watching you exist in your particular and irreplaceable way without being in the position of someone who had declared themselves, without being able to respond fully to what you offered, without the freedom to simply be interested openly without management. And that watching, that sustained and carefully contained watching of someone you want without the ability to move toward them, is one of the more quietly costly experiences available. It accumulates in the specific way that unexpressed things accumulate, building pressure, building specificity, building a quality of desire that is not diffused by expression, but instead concentrated by its absence. The restraint did not diminish what they feel, it intensified it, focused it, gave it a precision and a weight that freely expressed feeling almost never achieves, because freely expressed feeling moves and releases and finds its natural level, while contained feeling builds and builds and builds until the container simply cannot hold the volume of what it was asked to carry. The container has reached its volume, and what is about to pour out of it toward you with the concentrated force of everything that built during the period of holding back is not casual interest, is not the tentative, easily withdrawn reaching of someone who is testing the water before committing to the temperature. It is pursuit, real, deliberate, nothing held back this time pursuit. The specific and unmistakable quality of someone who has decided past all their previous hesitation, past all the careful self management of the restraint period, that you are worth the full exposure of being openly, completely, without a safety net interested in. That decision, when it becomes action, produces something that is qualitatively different from the ordinary experience of someone liking you or finding you attractive or wanting to spend time with you. It produces the experience of being pursued in the old, genuine, I am coming toward you, specifically and deliberately sense of that word, of being the object of an intention that is clear and sustained and not going to retreat at the first sign of complexity, of being someone toward whom another person has organized their movement, has pointed their full attention, their full intention, their full willingness to be seen, wanting, and is now moving with the specific momentum of someone who has nothing left to hold back. In the symbolic language of the soul's great archetypes, what governs this moment is the Knight of Wands in full movement, not the cautious, deliberating Knight of Cups that is the energy of considered feeling finding its moment. The Knight of Wands moves differently, with fire, with the specific, barely contained, forward moving energy of someone who has finally stopped deliberating and started acting, whose decision was made in a private moment that already passed, and whose movement now is simply the physical expression of an internal certainty that has been building for longer than the action suggests. The fire has been building for the entire duration of the holding back. And now that the holding back has ended, now that the reins have been released and the restraint has been allowed to fall, what moves toward you carries all of it. All the accumulated fire of every moment they watched and wanted and chose again to wait. Moving now with the concentrated force of a thing that was compressed for a long time and is finally, completely, irreversibly free. Soft sigh. Now I want to speak to you because being pursued genuinely, heavily, with the full intention of someone who held back and is now releasing everything they held is an experience that asks something specific of the person being pursued. And what it asks is not passive reception, not the performance of being desirable, not the careful management of how you respond in order to maintain some perceived power balance. It asks presence, the full, grounded, completely yourself presence of someone who receives genuine pursuit with the dignity of someone who knows why they are being pursued, who understands clearly and without false modesty that what is moving toward them is moving toward something real and worth moving toward, who can be seen being wanted without either deflecting from discomfort or dissolving in the warmth of it. That balance between receiving and remaining yourself, between being moved and staying grounded, is the specific quality that this moment calls for. And it is a quality you have been building through everything the recent seasons asked of you without perhaps knowing that this was what you were building it for. You are more prepared for this than you feel, more rooted, more certain of your own worth, not in the performed, declared way, but in the quiet, structural, below argument way than the version of you that enters this reading may currently be able to access. Because certainty of that kind does not always feel like certainty from the inside. It sometimes feels like simply knowing what you will and will not accept, knowing what feels right and what feels like performance, knowing with the specific and unpretentious clarity of someone who has been through enough to have calibrated their own instrument, the difference between being genuinely wanted and being conveniently available. What is approaching is genuine wanting, the kind that held back long enough to be certain before moving, the kind that built its intention through sustained observation rather than impulsive feeling, the kind that arrives with the specific quality of something considered not romantic in the swept away sense, but romantic in the deeper sense of a person who has looked clearly at who you are and decided with full information that you are the direction they want to move in. Whew, let that land. The specific quality of being chosen with full information, not chosen in the early, intoxicated, not yet knowing you phase of wanting where the feeling is large and the knowledge is small. Chosen after watching, after the sustained, attentive, nothing missed observation of someone who knows what they are choosing and has chosen it anyway because of what they saw, not despite it, because of you. The actual, current, completely unidealized you. The one who shows up on ordinary days and difficult ones alike. The one with the specific and irreplaceable combination of qualities that this person has been cataloging through the entire duration of the holding back, cataloging not to find the flaw that would justify the restraint, but finding again and again something that made the restraint harder to maintain. You made the restraint hard to maintain simply by being what you are, simply by existing in the specific and unrepeatable way you exist, which is something no strategy produces and no performance achieves, which is simply yours. The particular and entirely natural quality of your presence that the holding back could not stop registering, that the distance could not stop feeling, that the restraint could not stop wanting to cross. That quality is what the pursuit is aimed at, not a version of you, not the presented, curated, strategically revealed version, the actual one. And the pursuit that is coming heavy, deliberate, nothing held back is the world's way of confirming that the actual one is not only enough, it is the thing itself. The specific and irreplaceable thing that someone watched for long enough to be completely certain about before they allowed themselves to move. soft sigh. Let the chase begin. Not with the anxious, over monitoring energy of someone who is trying to manage the outcome, not with the performed indifference of someone who mistakes unavailability for desirability, with the calm, rooted, completely undefended openness of someone who knows their own worth, who understands that what is coming toward them is coming toward something real, and who is willing to be real in return. Fully, without the protective editing that the uncertainty of the holding back period made necessary, without the careful management of a dynamic that no longer requires management because the terms have changed. The terms have changed. The holding back is over. The restraint has released. And what is now moving toward you with the full concentrated force of everything that built during the long period of everything that was held deserves to be met with the full, present, completely yourself version of the person it has been building toward all along. That person is you, exactly as you are, exactly as you have always been underneath the uncertainty, underneath the wondering whether you were imagining the current that ran between you, underneath the careful and self protective management of your own hoping. Exactly, precisely, completely you. Which is, it turns out everything they were holding back from reaching and everything they are now, finally, without restraint, coming toward. Let them come. You are ready. If this reading found you at exactly the right moment tonight, if something here named what is about to begin and gave you solid ground to stand on when it does stay close, subscribe and come back. Because the story of what happens when someone who held back finally lets go is one worth witnessing all the way through to its most extraordinary chapter. And the next reading will be there for every step of the chase.